Hey, welcome everybody back to Curiosities. I know it's been a minute and I'm trying to get to these videos, but hey, life. Anyways, I want to get into the story that's in the news this week, and I want to talk a little bit about it, and it has to do with divorce rates. This is something that the mainstream media is taking and running with, and they're just like, divorce rates are down, divorce rates are down, woo! They're just like parading this thing around, divorce rates are down, divorce rates are down. So this is some great feat that has been accomplished by humanity, America. Not so fast. Okay, let's talk about the details of what's going on here. Before you do, though, before I get into any of that, do me a favor, and if you're a supporter of this channel, please consider becoming a patron. Go to patreon.com/KingOfSilas. Also, our sponsors want to say thank you to DNA Solutions, and you guys have been tremendous supporters of this show, and I'm really, really grateful for that. DNA Solutions. For all your business needs, go to dnabaltimore.com today if you're on the East Coast or anywhere. Anyway, let's talk about divorce rates, okay? So this is what the media is going around talking about, divorce rates. It's down, and so this is like a major thing because we want to improve. Yeah, hey, we're getting happier. We're being happier.
Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy.
Let's take a look at this headline. The headline reads, "The divorce rate is dropping. That may not actually be good news." And it's not really what you think it is. And I know why people are talking about the divorce rate being down. They want to consider this a major accomplishment that somehow we're regaining the marriage situation. A lot of countries look at marriage rates as equaling production of more people, babies, China was one that was looking at their divorce rate, or their birth rate was down 10%. So they were panicking because there weren't going to be enough people to replace those that are retiring or dying. And America's no different. America's looking to repopulate itself, and marriage is one of the more efficient ways to do that, because couples generally will have children, and they'll raise a family. Anyway, so let's take a look at what Time Magazine says here in their opening lines. And I'm only going to talk about just a little bit of this. It says, "Have you heard that statistic that half of all marriages will end in divorce? It's wrong. Even if that many marriages ever did disintegrate at one point, they don't now." Now, Time Magazine is clearly not looking at the whole picture here, or maybe they are, and they're just being stupid, or they're being deliberate in how they package this story. Divorce rates are down because marriages are down. It's that simple. I know, I understand that correlation doesn't always mean causation, but in this case, you have to. It's very logical. I know that's a hard thing to ask of the news people these days, is to be logical in your reporting. But this is definitely misleading. This is a very misleading story, and I want to show you this statistic. I want to show you this graph real quick. U.S. marriages rate rebounds to pre-pandemic level. This is what everyone is talking about. If you look at this graph here, the U.S. marriage rate rebounds to pre-pandemic level. That's funny to me. So if you look at down here, the years, the decades from the 60s to the 70s, there was a kind of a bit of a bump, and I think that's where it peaked, was at 85.9, almost 86% of the people per 1,000 were married by 15 and older. I don't know what 15-year-old you want to get married, but okay. But after that peak, it literally goes declining downwards like a mountain slope. It just keeps going down, 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 and hit rock bottom right around 2020. And what happened at 2020, everyone? Hello, the COVID pandemic hit at 2020. So naturally, nobody was going to be getting married because, there was, social distancing, and people weren't allowed to get together in large groups. And, churches were closed down. And a lot of people get married in churches. So they weren't getting married. They were going to postpone on that because they couldn't have these large gatherings. And, a lot of businesses were forced to shut down. And so people rescheduled their marriages. So what's that bump here? I think the bump is that people held on to their monies and waited till the pandemic cleared out. And then they all decided to get married. The ones that were really going to be down here in 2020 ended up getting married over here. And so that's what they're celebrating. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. But for whatever reasons, the news people, they're deliberate in the way they deliver these stories, because it's misleading. It's not it's not the big bump they think it is. It's like, oh, everybody's getting married. No, people held off to get married until all this cleared out, and then they got married on top of the people that would normally be getting married. So that's what's really happened. That's the undercurrent story here. I don't know why they want to just, gloss over and say, oh, no, that means that things are getting better. No, they're not. No, they're not. And that's just the reality of it. And I'm not a big fan of CNBC, but I think what they talk about in this little segment, and I'm only going to play like a minute or two of this, but I want you to hear what they have to say. So check this out. We'll listen to this together.
Middle and especially lower income groups. Marriages declined to 66 and 38% respectively by 2018. Since the 1970s, there has been a decline in the number of American men without college degrees in the US labor force. The last 50 years also saw their earnings stagnate and decrease.
By contrast, we're seeing women having a more secure footing in today's sort of more service post-industrial economy. And so we know that marriage is many things, but it's also in part a financial undertaking. And so when you have men who are losing ground financially in this working class demographic and women who are gaining ground, I think they both kind of see that the guy is less marriageable. And so they're less likely to kind of get married in the first place and more likely to get divorced in the second place.
So, I mean, look, let's talk real, okay? I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm not going to circumvent any realities in my own personal life. I've been married 3 times. This is my 3rd marriage. I think for a lot of men and women, really, they see red flags when they get into a relationship, but they gloss over the red flags because they're attracted to the person or because they have hope, and they think that their partner will, come around and they can get through these difficult things that they disagree on and move forward, and I think a lot of times people have this hope, and it's a false hope, and they ignore the red flags. And then once they're in a marriage, they realize, oh boy, I really, really effed up here. And by that time, you're, I think, just kind of in co-pilot mode, and you're just trying to get through the day, trying to get through the next day, the next week, the next month, etc. But eventually those red flags are just blaring in your face all the time. And you decide, you know what, we live in a society, we live in a time when it isn't necessarily frowned upon if your marriage or your relationship doesn't work out and you go your separate ways. And so that has happened in my life twice. But I think what it really takes to be in a marriage and be in it for the long haul is getting to know your partner and having a compatibility. Now, nothing's ever going to be perfect, and there you just can't ignore the red flags, man. You just can't. And I think a lot of times young people will ignore those red flags, and then they find out, hey, I'm not with this man, and they jump ship. And that's really that's why people get divorced. I mean, let's face it. Now, there's another YouTuber that I really, really like, and I share his content with just about every single person that I know, mainly men. And his name is Taylor the Fiend, and I'll put his picture up here in a second. Okay, so this is Taylor the Fiend. He's like this. He has this avatar. It's like a vampire. He really puts it in perspective. I think a lot of young men will watch his content and relate, because what he's saying is essentially, especially he's looking at it from a male's perspective, that a lot of times women will play throughout their 20s, and then when they hit that wall in the 30s, they realize, oh boy, I want to be married, I want to have children. So now they want to find a good man. Now they want to find a stable man, somebody with a career, with a job, somebody with some money or a house or something that could provide for them, to give them some stability, some security. And so he just wants to put that in perspective for men so they don't know what they're getting into, because a lot of times these women will put it out there and say, yeah, this whoever's going to be my husband or whatever, he has to have this, he has to be that. They set all these high criterias for this supposed imaginary man, this Prince Charming, if you will. But then, they've ignored all those criterias previous to that. And they were, going around having fun with all these guys beforehand who didn't have to give any of that, didn't have to do any of those things, didn't have to meet any of those criteria. So they got to get all that for free. But now the good guy is the one who's got to, have all these things in order. And a lot of men are waking up to that, and they're just like, yeah, I don't think so. So that's why a lot of men are just opting out of not getting married at all. And I've shared this with, like I said, a lot of my single men friends, and they're also waking up to this. And it's like, look, if you want to be if you want to have that modern mentality, then you got to deal with the modern consequences of it. And right now, men who are looking for more traditional type situations, because women will eventually want to get into a traditional situation. But by that time, they've already accumulated so much mileage that men are like, hey, what's left for me, man? So that's why I think a lot of men are getting out of the situation. But I'm curious what you guys think. What do you think about this whole marriage thing, or the divorce rate going down? I believe sincerely, and I think I've laid out my case pretty well, that the reason why divorce rates are down is because marriage rates are way down. And I think a lot of that falls at the steps of these young men and women who choose a lifestyle that is so far from traditional that eventually they come around and say, well, you know what? I want to have a traditional situation. I want to be in a marriage and I want to be with a partner who I can trust, blah, 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 blah. But by that time, you've already accumulated all this other stuff in your life, and it tends to, you can't have a traditional situation. You just can't, because you've already tainted yourself so much with all these other things. And I'm guilty of that. But eventually, you can figure out, you can navigate through. It's not hopeless. I think eventually you can, and hopefully you find out sooner rather than later, because I think a lot of times people find out way too late. And then like you have these women that are in their pushing 40 or something like that, and they still can't get married. And by that time, I mean, the clock is already winding down. It's blinking red. And men don't want to be in a situation like that. At least most men don't. At least the desirable men for those women don't. And that's the reality, because I think women desire a certain type of man. And as they get older, those men are not interested in them. They're just not. And that's I didn't make the rules, man. Don't get mad at me. But that's where we are. And if you want to get married, I think if people want to have traditional marriages, they need to do it earlier in life. As difficult as that is, they need to do it earlier in life rather than later. I think a lot of people put that idea that, oh, I'll just get married later when I'm more of this, when I'm more of that. But the more time that goes by, the further you drift from the shore, and it just becomes harder to do. And I'm not saying it's impossible. It clearly was possible for somebody like me. I feel like I'm in a very traditional situation now, and I'm extremely happy. I'm very stable. But it took a lot to get here, and I think I got lucky, honestly. I don't think that's the rule. I think I'm the exception here. But anyway, I'm curious. I'd like to know what you guys think. Drop me a comment below. If you're not comfortable with that, you can DM me. I really appreciate all the support, all the love that I've been getting from people all around, not just here in Baltimore, but around the country and even in other countries. And I appreciate the support to the Curiosities program. Please hit that like button, share this video with others. And until next time, I'll catch you all. God bless.
New Kingdom Radio Theater.